The feud with Wagner Group owner Yevgeny Prigozhin is being seen as one of the biggest threats that the Russian President Vladimir Putin has faced in his 22-long-year tenure in Moscow. And it's been almost 3 weeks since the Wagner chief carried out his mutiny against the Russian administration. The Wagner Group eventually, of course, called off the rebellion after Russia struck a deal with the Wagner boss Yevgeny Prigozhin, and he was exiled in Belarus. As of now, no one knows the Wagner chief's present location. But in the latest, fighters from Russia's Wagner mercenary group reportedly are training soldiers in Belarus. Listen in.
На полигоне под Осиповичами сегодня развернуто несколько учебных мест. Наибольший интерес представляют тактическая стрельба и перемещение на поле боя. В роли обучаемых военнообязанные из подразделений территориальной обороны. Главная особенность занятий – инструкторы. Ими выступают бойцы из ЧВК «Вагнер», которые передают белорусам свой боевой опыт.
Meanwhile, Minsk has said that members of the Russian mercenary force were acting like military instructors for the Belarusian Territorial Defense Forces.
Это новый способ подготовки территориальных войск. В последующем руководством вооруженных сил будет принято решение о целесообразности его использования.
The ministry has also released a video which shows Wagner fighters instructing Belarusian soldiers at a military range near the town of Osipovichi, that is about 90 kilometers southeast of the capital city of Minsk.
ЧВК рассказывают нюансы действий в различных условиях складывающейся обстановки. Сторонние укрепились в мысли о необходимости подобных учений. Опыт, который военнообязанные получили от представителей ЧВК «Вагнер», станет основательным вкладом в обеспечение военной безопасности страны.
The Belarusian Defense Ministry did not report the number of the Russian Wagner mercenaries from the group who arrived in Belarus, but according to sources, some fighters from the Wagner mercenary group have been in Belarus for the last few days. As the Belarusian soldiers are getting trained by the Wagner group, Poland is also on its toes. It's moved about 1,000 of its troops to the east of the country amidst the rising concerns in the NATO member nation that the presence of the Wagner group fighters in Belarus could lead to increased tensions along its border. Moreover, after the group's aborted mutiny in Russia, the Kremlin has said that Russia could grant legal status to the private military group, a U-turn prompted by the fallout of the Wagner group's short-lived insurrection just last month. And according to the Kremlin, the move will be considered, which will give the Russian authorities greater direct control over these private militia. All right, now to give us more perspective in terms of what this, of course, means, we're being joined by Mr. John Irat, who is a Senior Policy Director for the Center for Arms Control and Non-Proliferation. He's joining us live from Washington this moment. Now, Mr. Irat, the question that a lot of people would be wondering about is this: the Wagner militia, who staged an aborted mutiny against the Kremlin. They're now said to be, at least quite a few of these fighters are now said to be in Belarus and are training the Belarusian army. How will the West look at this?
That's a difficult question because when Wagner and when the Russian and Belarusian governments are involved, there is always a great deal of propaganda and disinformation that is part of the equation. So it's difficult to discern exactly what is going on and exactly what the Wagner fighters are doing in Belarus. It does seem that they are there. It has been announced they are conducting training of the Belarusian military territorial defense forces. So that's all we know. It is plausible that they could be performing such a mission, but there may be another agenda at work.
I think that's true because it's difficult to in fact sift fact from fiction in the many claims that are in fact being made. But the larger question is this, after that aborted mutiny by the Wagner mercenary group, what is the future for the Wagner militia? Can it even continue to exist within Russia?
I think what we're seeing now is a process where many of the former Wagner units are being absorbed into the Russian military, where the members of those units are being given a choice of joining the Russian army or being in some way liquidated, taken out of business. I think following the events of last month, Wagner is not going to be permitted to operate as they previously had within Russia, as a military separate from that of the normal Russian forces.
Right.
But again, there's a lot of propaganda at work, and we have to be very careful regarding what is being put out for propaganda purposes as fact.
Absolutely, indeed. And my final question to you is this. You know, the Wagner mercenary group, in fact, gave a lot of strategic depth to some of these Russian forces who are operating not just in Ukraine, but also in other parts of the world. For instance, Wagner played a crucial role in Syria. Wagner is very active in many of these North African nations. The fact that the Russians could deny that they were involved in any operations that the Wagner was involved in was something that they had always relied on over the course of the last few years. So with Wagner giving them that advantage, do you think Kremlin would want to completely wipe out the Wagner, or would it want to continue using the Wagner as a proxy tool for it to carry out these activities that it has been doing so far in West Africa and in other parts of Africa?
You are absolutely right. The Wagner Group has been an extremely valuable tool whereby Moscow can gain its foreign policy goals without the responsibility for some of the atrocities that are being committed by some of these forces. So that is going to continue to be useful, and you're going to continue to see Russian mercenaries who may or may not have an affiliation with the Russian state at work. They will probably be operating under a name that is different from Wagner. There are other mercenary companies that are currently in existence, currently active in those countries. So I think you're going to see continued use of this tool as Russia seeks to destabilize and put forward its own agenda in the area.
Absolutely, indeed. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Johnny Rath, for joining us and getting us all those details there.
Thank you.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.